Now, we've heard from the Palestinian perspective there, as flagged. Let's get a view of what's happening within Jewish communities in this country today. Jeremy Liebler is the president of the Zionist Federation of Australia. He joined us from Melbourne. Jeremy Liebler, welcome to the program. I thought we might start here locally in Australia. You may be aware that Peter Dutton today, perhaps others too, has expressed concerns for the safety and well-being of Jewish Australians as a natural consequence of the trouble that has fermented in the Middle East. Is this something that is apparent in Jewish communities that you lead and are involved with?
Well, thanks for having me. Unfortunately, whenever events in the Middle East spire out of control, it does tend to make its way here to Australia. And so at the best of times, the Australian Jewish community is at security risk. I have children that go to a Jewish day school. When I drop them off in the morning, every single day, there are armed guards standing outside. It's now completely normal to them, but really not normal at all. And so when you have a situation that is taking place now in Israel and in Gaza, where Hamas, a terrorist organisation, has infiltrated Israel and murdered 700 people in the last 24 hours, 700 people, kidnapped women, children as young as 2 years old over the border into Gaza, it does end up having consequences here in Australia, particularly when you have marches and protests effectively in support of a terrorist organisation. Hamas is designated by Australia as a terrorist organisation, and I just watched footage from Sydney where people were marching, supporting Hamas, effectively supporting the murder of innocent women and children. It's very concerning, and inevitably it does impact the Jewish community.
Do you have confidence in the relevant security agencies? They would include ASIO, state police, federal police. Do you believe they are sufficiently alert to these heightened risks, if not sensitivities?
Well, we do as a Jewish community have a very good, strong working relationship with the relevant authorities who do understand the risks and are sensitive to it. We've also benefited from support both from the government and the opposition when they were in government for funding for security for the Jewish community. But when you put your child to bed at night and he turns around and says, "Dad, why are there people with guns outside the school? When I go to the local school and kick a footy on a Sunday afternoon, there are no fences, let alone guards." It doesn't make that any easier.
And the public demonstrations, you've referred to a march in Sydney. We've also on the program today played a little bit of tape, Jeremy Liebler, from a gathering in Lakemba last night in Sydney. Is this something that you're resigned to happening in a free society like Australia, or are you suggesting they should be more closely monitored or prevented?
Well, Australia is a free society, as is Israel. Unfortunately, Gaza is not. Hamas is a dictatorship, and there is no freedom of expression. People should be free to express their views on politics, on life, as long as it doesn't incite violence toward other groups. And when you have a designated terrorist organisation murdering innocent civilians, and you have people marching or imams using a religious basis to calling to support the uprising, well, that's when you start to cross into incitement to violence, which is unlawful under Australian law, and I hope the authorities do investigate those speeches and rallies to see if they have breached any Australian laws.
Yeah, well, I'm sure they'll be aware of it by now anyway. Australian families with loved ones in Israel will be making many frantic phone calls probably for the last 40-odd hours or so now. Jeremy, there is as yet no information about Australian citizens being among the dead, but do you have any suggestions via personal and private networks otherwise?
Look, Israel is a very small place. It's a population of 9 million. What you'll find is that, almost every member of the Jewish community in Australia in particular will have friends or close family in Israel. We had a very, very difficult 48 hours. I was informed last night that a close family friend was missing and unaccounted for. And Thank God we got news that she was okay and safe. She was in the affected area down south. She was hidden in a safe room with people that had been killed for 12 hours until she felt it was safe to come out when the Israeli authorities had regained control of that area. There are still people that are unaccounted for. It is chaos at the moment in Israel. There are families that have children who have been kidnapped and taken to Gaza. I watched on social media a mother of 2 children who was on the phone to her teenage children as Hamas came into their house in Israel proper and snatched her 2 children, and she hasn't heard from them since. There is a lot more information that is yet to come out, sadly.
Obviously, these chaotic circumstances, on all current indications, Jeremy Liebler, are going to persist for quite a while yet. Just since you referenced those hostages, and there is a preponderance of women and girls, as we understand it, involved in that hostage caseload, do you look to the international community, including Australia, to do anything in particular to broker potentially their release?
Look, we absolutely expect, and so far have had a lot of support from the international community, both the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition, as well as President Biden, the UK government, and any fair-minded Western democracy can see for this what it is. Hamas is no different to ISIS. They are no different to the Taliban. And we need the Western world to support both the release of these women and children, these hostages, as young as 2, as well as defend Israel's right to defend itself.
Yeah. Now, we heard on the program today, Jeremy, from the head of the Palestinian mission to Australia, Mr. Abdul Hadi. He says the context to these Hamas and Hezbollah attacks that started over the weekend were weeks of oppression of late, particularly the most recent fortnight, and inflammatory statements at the United Nations as well. Do you accept that it does, just to respond to him, take 2 to tango? There is a recent escalatory context to what has gone on here.
Yeah, this is the classic dangerous pathway to moral equivalence. I think we in the Western world here, we need to be very clear and send a message. Political disagreements, fine. Disputes, Israel is not perfect. The government is not always perfect. But there is no justification to go walk into a room, murder women, children. We are talking about rape. We are talking about mutilation of bodies, dragging children and women through the streets of Gaza. A grandmother, an 80-something-year-old grandmother, is kidnapped in Gaza. I saw on social media another Israeli grandmother in her 70s was murdered. They took her phone, took photos of her dead body and posted it on her Facebook stream, and that is how her family discovered that she had been killed. We are not dealing, these are not 2 armies here, we are dealing with a barbaric, murderous terrorist organisation. And anyone, and I think this is the point, anyone that tries to deflect and cannot bring themselves to condemn this sort of behaviour is part of the problem.
Yeah, we wanted to bring that quote to your attention purely so we could get the response and the counterbalancing context, I guess, Jeremy Liebler. Look, many difficult days ahead for your community. Let's see where this takes us and the world, and perhaps catch up again soon. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.